In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to quickly create an external dialogue effect. So this is the effect of, without actually having to go into a dialogue, you can just see characters speaking while you're walking around the map, or you can trigger this effect. So what we're going to do is set up an example here where I've got a zone set up, because it's the quickest way to trigger a wider area. So if I step on any of these 4 tiles, it's going to trigger the effect. So I've just created a zone that's passable. I've called it trigger dialogue, set it to 32 by 32, and then in a minute we'll put a character enters script on the trigger event. Okay, so the first thing we need to do though is we're going to make this a function, because we're going to use this function quite a lot. So rather than having to reuse the code all the time, it would be good to make it a function. So what we're going to do first of all is go to game configuration, going to go to global functions, and we're going to type function, oops, and we're going to give it a name. So let's see if we can call it speak underscore message. Let's see if we're allowed to call it that. And I'm going to use 2 parameters for this custom function. So the first parameter is going to be we'll call it message. So what is the message that we want the NPC or character to speak? And then timeout is going to be another variable or parameter, which is going to be how long should it stay on the screen when it's finished animating. Okay, and then begin. To begin our function, we'll add the end ahead of time so we don't need to worry about it, and then press tab. So what do we need our function to do? So the first thing it's going to do is we're going to for loop through $message. So let me just type this out. So for $C in $message do. And what this is going to do is this RPG in a Box has this really cool feature where it treats a string like an array. So it automatically turns a string into an array where every character is an entry in the array. So we don't have to actually do that ourselves. It does it automatically. So we're going to use that inbuilt, really useful functionality. What we also need is a temporary string which we're going to build. So we'll just call this temp message. And it's going to start blank. And we're going to build this message up as we loop through, okay? Because we want the message to animate. So whatever we pass in via the message parameter, we want the character to slowly say that scrolling along the screen. So we want this sort of ticker effect. So the way to do that is to rebuild the message in the for loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to say $temp message equals $temp message plus $C. Okay, so in other words, for every letter in our message, set the temp message to what it is currently and add the next current letter on. So the first time this loop goes round, let's say we haven't put a message in yet, but let's say our message was hello. The first time this bit of code gets run, because we start this as blank before we hit the loop, it's going to be empty. It's going to be blank the first time round. But then what it's going to do is it's going to add C. It's going to add the first letter on, so it's then going to become H. Okay. The next time it loops round, it's going to be H still, because we're saying whatever it is currently. So H plus C. Well, it's gone round again to the next letter, so now it will add an E on the end. So each time it loops round, it's going to add the next character onto the end. Okay, so it's going to build this string letter by letter rather than as a whole when we pass it in, if that makes sense. So the next thing we want to do, this is the important bit, is we then want to set entity tooltip, and I've realised we do need a third parameter actually, so I'm going to add it at the beginning, which is the entity. So I'll just type ent so it doesn't get confused with the inbuilt entity. So set entity tooltip. So the first parameter is who should say this thing. Well, it's going to be the entity we pass in via the function when we call it. What do they say? In this case, $temp message. So say what is currently being built as it builds it up, and then the most important thing is true, because what true does is it makes the entity tooltip stay on screen above their head without you having to aim the mouse over them to show this text. Because usually by default entity tooltips are something where if you hover the mouse over them, it will tell you what it's called or something like that. It's a tooltip. But we can use the fact that there's an optional parameter for this function which is true, which means that you don't have to mouse over it. It will always be on screen above the thing. So in essence what we're doing is we're using a function which isn't really used for dialogue, but in this case we're using it for dialogue. What we're doing is we're using the entity tooltip as a way to kind of display an on-screen conversation between two NPCs or a quick message to the player. Okay, what we'll do in this case is we'll have a bit of both. We'll have both characters will say something to the player, but it'll be part of a conversation between two NPCs that are on the map. You'll see what I mean when we put it together. So then the last thing I want to do, the next thing we need to do is add a wait, and this is going to be how quickly should the message animate. Okay, now you're going to want this to be quite quick, because even though 0.5 seems like it's going to be quite quick, that's slow when it comes to building out a string, especially if your message is a long one, like you've got a whole quest line or something you want to pass on to the player. You don't want to be sat there waiting for 0.5 of a second every character. So you want to make it something like 0.05, possibly even quicker, right? That's going to be the speed at which it sort of builds out the string in front of you. Okay, and then the final thing we want to add is a final wait at the end of the for loop, so just here, and this is going to be how long should it stay on screen before it gets cleared. So let's make that dynamic. So when you call the function, can specify how. So in other words, this function, the code in this function itself isn't hard coded for what that time is. You can change it whenever for each individual speak message by just giving it a time, and that will be passed into the wait, if that makes sense. And then the final thing we need to do is when the time is up, set entity tooltip for the same entity that was saying the message, clear it out. Okay, and that will make the tooltip disappear. Okay, validate, and okay, so we can't call it speak message or possibly even message. Let's see if it's the message bit. Let's try MSG. Okay, maybe it doesn't like speak, so let's put message back. This error is, by the way, is because we can't call it this, so I'm just trying to find a name that it likes. There you go, say message. We'll use that. Okay, so function say message, and then click OK. So there's our function. So that's done most of the heavy lifting. So now we can think about our script when we enter this trigger, this zone. So what we'll do is we'll go to the script editor, and we'll create a new script, which we'll call, I don't know, map dialog, let's say. Obviously you can call it anything you like, but just for the case of demonstration, we'll call it this. So we're going to go into the script, the code, and we're going to call our function. So say message, oops, and we're going to have entity Sarah. I think I gave her ID Sarah1, so that's the entity. Then what do we want her to say? So I'll tell you what I forgot to do. Go to the asset library. Where is it? I might have to load the example game up quickly. Let me just try. There we go. Can I grab Lux? That's it. I just needed the name of the cat, so I forgot the name. So I'm just typing out a quick message that Sarah can say. So, and then how long do we want the message to be on screen for before it moves on? Let's just say 4 seconds. And then we then want a weight of, we need to think about this because obviously, well, let's try 4 seconds and we'll just see. And then we want the next one. So let's just copy that. And this is going to be Stumpy. And we'll have something like that. Okay, so I'm not the reason why I'm sort of umming and ahhing about this weight is obviously I want Sarah to say that and then Stumpy afterwards to say that, but I need to know how long is the delay between not only how long this should stay on screen for, but also how long it takes to build this string. So you might need to sort of tweak this code a little bit, but you know, you get the idea. So Sarah's going to say that, then it's going to wait, and then Stumpy's going to say the next thing. But the point is we've got this same message function where all we have to do is just pass in who should say it, what should they say, and how long should it be on screen for, and all the code that does the actual building of the string is done here with the for loop, taking in the entity and the message and the timer and using it all in this code here. So we only have to call the function whenever we need it. So this should hopefully give us a quick bit of dialogue while we're playing the game that we don't have to actually initiate dialogue for. So we'll apply and save. This is called map dialogue. So we go to our map editor, character enters the zone, we want map dialogue to play. Let's make it grid movement, and let's just make sure we don't start in the zone. Copy X, Y, Z coordinate, save the map, go to the script editor, go to startup, edit this and paste, no, paste, save and play. If you spotted that and you've been screaming at the video all this time, I do apologise putting you through that. We missed an S there. Let's just make sure there's no other mistakes. That should now work. Obviously we were building the wrong string to begin with and then trying to show the wrong string. So let's try again. It's always little spelling mistakes, isn't it? So can you help? Lux has got stuck up the tree. As soon as that disappears, while you're up there, I could do with some more acorns. We didn't even need the weight. Let's just test that, double check, because clearly it was not only using the weight for our function, but it was using then a weight afterwards, which I didn't want. So just quickly amend our script, our dialogue script, so we don't need, in fact I'm going to do it this way. In fact no, I will do it this way. It's quicker to do this. Delete that, connect that up. So we don't need that weight because it's already, the function is already taking care of that. I wasn't sure if it would or not. I wasn't sure if, well, I suppose if you think about it, well, yeah, I guess for loops do take priority. So if one's running, the other one isn't going to run either. So, but anyway, here we go. Look at one final test, make sure it's working. So can you help? Lux has got stuck up the tree. As soon as that one disappears, Stumpy should then say his line. While you're up there, I could do with some more acorns. Yeah, and then 4 seconds later, his will disappear as well. Okay, and then obviously you could continue. You could have other say messages. You know, just keep adding on to this script. Just say message, say message, say message, and you could have. You know, I think we could even. Let's give it one more go. Let's add one more. Let's just test. We can do this, but instead of entity, let's put player, and see if we can say something. Let's say. I don't know, something like that, right? We're just here to see if it works for the player. So let's see if that will do anything. So we get Sarah's, then we should get Stumpy's, and with any luck, we'll then have our response over our own head. So you can have your character temporarily say something. Obviously it's not a player choice, so you don't have any agency in what you say. Oh, and notice how, it's a good job I found this out. Notice how when I hover over them, we're seeing the tooltip. Obviously we don't want that, especially on the player, but also not on them, because I'm not planning for there to be a tooltip on them. So to do that in the function, I think you just add false onto here, because we've been using true when we're displaying the message, when we're building it out. I think we set it to false when we're done and we're clearing it out. That should then get rid of the box as well. So again, you can adjust the speed. If you think this text is going too slow still, you can make it 0.01. If you think the delay is too long for what it's on the screen, you can change the 4 to 2, something like that. It's entirely up to you. You can adjust the timings. Oh, that's interesting. So that doesn't get rid of it either. It does say in the description that an empty string value can be specified for the tooltip text in order to remove the entity's tooltip. So it should have worked. So I think it's a bug. But anyway, I found a very easy workaround. I went into the function, and instead of an empty string, so instead of just quote quote, I just put null in there, and that does it. So I'll just quickly show you the result. So now we'll go and initiate the dialog again. So you get Sarah's message, then you get Stumpy's message, and then finally our response. And then as soon as they're gone, mouse over, mouse over, mouse over, nothing. So there you go. So that's at least in the meantime, you know, until the bug, which I'm pretty sure it is a bug, because it does say in the description that empty string should remove the tooltip. Null definitely does do it. So I've triggered it again, but you get the idea. You'd probably want to make the zone a script to trigger once only. But anyway, there you go. So that'll wrap up this video on how to create animating external dialogue.